Hello and welcome to BBC Your Voice as Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is released under police investigation after being arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Well, officers have now arrived at his former home Royal Lodge in Berkshire to continue their searches there. Former Prince became the first senior member of the royal family to be arrested in almost 4 centuries. Joining us to answer your questions is Joshua Rosenberg, legal commentator. Hello, and our correspondent in Windsor, Helena Wilkinson, is standing by for us as well. Hello to you. So, plenty of questions to get through. Joshua, we're going to start with you if we can on the legal police investigation, just the state of play of where we are now. He's been released under police investigation. Search is continuing. Just talk us through, firstly, what released under investigation means and where the police investigation is right now.
The important thing, of course, is that he has not been charged with any criminal offence. And the police are continuing with their investigations, and during that time he is presumably, as far as we know, free to go about his daily activities. He may have a long wait because the investigation which the police have started is by no means finished. They will be going through all sorts of documents and papers, presumably going back 25 years to the start of his period as a trade envoy. I would say that would probably take months, and during that time they've also got to compare notes with the Crown Prosecution Service, the lawyers who will advise them on whether they have enough evidence to bring charges before the courts. So it may be several months before he even knows whether there's to be a criminal charge.
Interesting. Joshua, back with you in a moment. We'll get there. Delve into a little bit more detail of the police investigation and the legal ramifications. Helena, hello to you. Let's come to you now. Just on that broad question, we're throwing around kind of these historical dates. Just how unprecedented is an event like this in the royal family?
Well, it's difficult to think of a precedent in terms of the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor yesterday. He is the first senior member of the royal family in modern history to be arrested. It's been more than 350 years since the last royal arrest. That was in 1647, when King Charles was charged with treason during the English Civil War. And you might also remember as well, Lewis, in more recent times, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's sister, Princess Anne, she was fined £500 in 2002. That was under the Dangerous Dogs Act. But in terms of the President, this is unprecedented in terms of the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor yesterday.
Helena, thank you for that. And so we're back with Helena just in a little bit more detail. But Joshua, I want to come back to you. You've given us that broad outline of where things stand with the police investigation as things stand right now. Walk us through, if you could, the next steps that we're expecting. Clearly, we're not asking you to predict the future or even perhaps the specifics of this case, but just more generally, what are the police patterns and the legal steps that will be coming up?
I think one of the biggest challenges for the police is dealing with this offence that they have identified, this misconduct in public office offence. And the reason for that is that this isn't a crime created by Parliament. It's one that was developed by the judges over the centuries. So it's not very clearly defined, in my view. And I did put this point to the Director of Public Prosecutions. He gave us a briefing last week, of course, before we knew that anything was going to happen like this. And he said, no, it's perfectly clear. The courts defined it 20 years ago in a particular case. And what they said was it's committed by a public officer, whatever that may mean, but I presume it covers a trade envoy working for the state, a public officer acting as such, so in that particular role, who willfully neglects to perform his duty. Well, there's a question about what that duty may be, or willfully misconducts himself to such a degree as to amount to an abuse of the public's trust, which is perhaps a rather vague concept. public's trust without reasonable excuse or justification. And you can imagine a trade envoy would say, well, look, I've been given the job of deciding what's the appropriate thing to do with the information I have available. Sometimes it's the right thing to do to tell people of investment opportunities. Sometimes it's not, but that's the discretion you've given to me. So once the police have got all this documentary evidence that I've been talking about, they will confer with the lawyers at the Crown Prosecution Service, and they will say, well, does this meet these tests, or is there going to be a plausible defence put up by Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor if and when we bring charges?
Joshua, thank you for that. So Joshua, Helena, both outlined kind of where we stand right now. Let's get into some of the specifics. Plenty of people up and down the country and, of course, around the world, actually, have been asking questions about some of the details here. So, Helena, let's come to you. One of the questions seems to be around Andrew and the line of succession, and if it's possible for him to be removed from the line of succession.
Yes, it is. It's not a simple process. It would be complicated to do. We know that Andrew Mountbatten was stripped of many of his royal titles, all of them, in fact, in late last year, including the title of Prince, which he had since birth, but also the title of Duke of York as well, and other titles. But he does remain eighth in line of succession to the throne. It could be taken away from him. It would, though, require legislation by Parliament, and what it would also require is support from the other Commonwealth countries that have King Charles as their head of state, as it would obviously change the line of succession for them too. It would affect them, but it wouldn't be a simple process. Now, there is an argument by some people who say, what kind of difference would it make? There are other younger royals in line ahead of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, but there have been repeated calls for him to be stripped of that as well, to be removed from that line of succession. So it can be done, but it's not an easy process.
Interesting. Helena, thank you very much for clearing that up. Now, as I said, we're getting into questions from our audience. We're going to bring in a bonus expert now. Pandora Forsyth has just joined us, royal commentator. Pandora, thank you very much. I'm going to hit you with a pretty big question straight away. Derek from Carlisle asks, could this be the end of the monarchy? What do you think?
I don't think it will be the end of the monarchy, but there are more eyes on it than ever, and their next moves are so important. We know the monarchy historically haven't been very reactive to any sort of bad press, I suppose, about them. The fact is, yesterday, the king didn't know before Andrew did get arrested. He sort of learned at the same kind of time as all of us, really. And then within a matter of hours at midday, he released a extremely honest statement, which I'm sure the public would have appreciated. The next moves are so important for the image and for the longevity of the royal family. The sad news really is for the king, despite the fact that he's tried to get the problem of Prince Andrew to move away from being a distraction, quite literally stripping him of his titles and booting him out, I suppose, of his home. The problem of Prince Andrew is going to hang over, and now the arrest has happened. It's a story which will not be going away and is quite literally amplifying overnight.
Pandora, thank you very much for that. We will be back with you. We're going to go back to some of the legal and police questions, though. Joshua Rosenberg, legal commentator, is still with us. Joshua, your thoughts on the investigation so far? People have been asking about the way this operation has been carried out, because trying to judge clearly whether this is how things would ordinarily happen or not is pretty difficult when it's such a high-profile person at the centre of it.
Yes, but I think we have experience of people arrested for white-collar crimes in the past, and one can compare that. There are two options, aren't there? One is the police invite somebody in for an interview, and the other is they actually formally arrest them. Sometimes they arrest them when they arrive for interview. And the point of the arrest is that it gives the police the power to conduct searches, not so much anything on your person, on your pockets or whatever it may be in this case, but on your properties, the properties where you live, where you have lived. And that's certainly the first step in the police investigation because, of course, when these things happen, the last thing that the police want to do is for the suspect to be tipped off, in which case he might dispose of evidence that they may find useful. So that's why it's quite normal for them to arrive early in the morning without an appointment, perhaps sometimes even very early in the morning on some occasions, and to arrest somebody, bring them into a room, and then officers start searching the house, or in this case, searching the house in Norfolk and the home in Windsor. And that's perfectly lawful. They can do that. They take the person off for questioning at the police station, as we saw. The defendant, potential defendant, the suspect, the arrested person will no doubt want to see a lawyer, maybe a duty lawyer available. If it's a white-collar crime, then it may well be that the police would wait for the individual's own lawyer, assuming that the suspect has a lawyer of his own, which, as I say, is normal in these offences. The lawyer would come along, the lawyer would give the suspect advice, probably say nothing at all until we know what the evidence is. Questions would be asked, and in the meantime, the police could carry on their search. Once they've completed their searches at the suspect's home, well, the police say, we've got no further questions for you today. Mr. Mountbatten-Windsor, you're free to return home, and our investigations will continue.
Joshua, thanks for that. I want to bring in Pandora again. Questions from the public. Lots of people have been asking about what this means for Andrew's children now, what it means for their roles and indeed wider consequences for them.
I think this is really important as well, and it's almost spotting on the legal point there. He is an individual. And he has been arrested as an individual. Yes, he is part of the royal family, but an individual nevertheless. His children personally might be affected emotionally. I'm absolutely sure that is their father who has been arrested. But as it currently stands, they are still princesses, and they are in line for the throne. Now, we do know that the king did want a slimmed down monarchy, and they have also got causes and campaigns which they do want to shine a light upon, but they are not part of the senior working family. They're not part of the Wales's family, for instance, the Prince and Princess of Wales, who we see quite regularly, and they haven't been for several years. And actually, that's the way that they wanted it to be. I imagine in the royal calendar, they won't be booked and they won't be seen now for several weeks, so that the story can move on away from anything lurking around Andrew. And obviously, because that they are their daughters, they have that association with Andrew, and the royal family want to move on from him. So this will have a knock-on effect on them, but we have to bear in mind they weren't senior members of the working royal family under King Charles.
Thank you for that, Pandora. Helena, I want to come to you now. People talking about the popularity of the royal family, of the monarchy. What is the current state of play? What do opinion polls tell us? And what do we know? Probably it's clearly too soon to get a sense of what impact this incident will have on that.
Yes, I mean, I think it is too soon. It's certainly the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor was something that a lot of people were not surprisingly talking about yesterday. We know that the complaint that went into Thames Valley Police about Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor in terms of the misconduct in public office, that went in by the anti-monarchy group Republic. The members of the royal family, senior members of the royal family, the king in particular, following that statement that he put out yesterday, and we know that the king was not aware beforehand that his younger brother was going to be arrested. In that statement, the king said, "Let me state clearly, the law must take its course." There are obviously growing and continuing questions for the royal family in terms of whether anyone else knew what was potentially going on. Those questions will not go away, and also in that previous statement from the King that we had, I think it was last week, when the King said, Buckingham Palace said rather, that they were standing ready to support Thames Valley Police if needed. So whether that will go anywhere, whether any senior members of the royal family might have to talk to police over the investigation, that is unclear at this stage.